Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Lauren Anderson with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great 30 minutes lined up for you. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that we are recording today's webinar and will make it available later this evening on franchise.org. If you have any questions for today's speaker, please add them to the Q&A box and they will be addressed toward the end. Today's topic is silent churn, the customers you don't know you're losing, and it is brought to us by Listen 360. Here to provide today's discussion is Jenna Walker, Strategic Account Executive at Listen 360. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to Listen 360 for sponsoring today's Lunch and Learn. I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to get to have this time to speak with all of you. Let's just go ahead and dive right in here. I am with Listen 360. Here's a QR code if you want to check out Listen 360 and learn more about what we do. We will bring this back up at the end as well. But I'm here to talk to you today about silent churn. As I was introduced, my name is Jenna Walker, and I'm a strategic account executive at Listen 360. But I want to start by saying that my background is actually in franchise operations, not software sales. I'm here today with my operator hat on because before joining Listen 360, I spent over 15 years in franchise operations, and I worked for a number of different brands, leading field support teams, implementing operational initiatives, coaching franchisees on the day-to-day. So I know firsthand the challenges that come with growing a franchise system. And it's why I'm so passionate about the importance of a continuous feedback loop that tells you exactly what your customers are thinking and feeling early and often so that you have the time and ability to actually do something about it before it's too late. So let's dive right in and talk about what is silent churn. I want to start by providing a personal anecdote to give you an example of what silent churn looks like. I personally had a membership at a local wellness franchise. When they first opened, I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to go twice a week. And I did. But every time I went, something not bad happened, but it just wasn't like a wonderful experience. The first time they couldn't find my appointment. It was kind of annoying, but it was fine. They got me in anyways. The second time, the iPad wasn't working in the room. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is annoying. And slowly over time, my desire to go just kind of waned. And so a few months later, I got a notification that my payment hadn't gone through because my credit card needed to be updated. And guess what I did? Even though I know better, I took that as an opportunity to just go ahead and not update my credit card information and no longer be a member at that business. Now, there was nothing that happened that was complaint worthy. It was just little small things that over time eroded my opinion or my experience with that business to the point where I was just ready to walk away. And so that's the idea that we're going to be talking about today is that, most customers aren't going to storm out the door. They're not going to complain loudly. They're just going to stop showing up. And the problem is it's always who cancels, but it's those that just quietly fade away. You can see this infographic here. 1 out of 26 unhappy customers actually complain. The rest of them don't say anything. So if you are getting some complaints and addressing those, that's great. But think about all of the people who are just quietly quietly fading into the distance, and we don't know why. I think that's the most important piece as a franchise owner or franchisor. Why are these people fading away? So let's talk about the difference between active churn and silent churn. I think we all know what active churn looks like, right? That's your obvious turnover. Those are the people that are canceling or not returning. They're submitting Google reviews that have negative feedback, or they are actually complaining to your management. They're asking for a refund, and obviously that's going to result in a decline in revenue. Silent churn is way harder to detect. Often we think no news is good news, but no news is actually just no news. With every membership-based model, I know you're tracking active churn and there's an acceptable range for your attrition, but a lack of feedback is not an indication of satisfaction is really the key point here. So when they're coming in less frequently, or they're forgetting to schedule an appointment, or they are not responding to your emails, or they're not responding to your promotions. Those are the kinds of things you want to be on the lookout for, because those are indicators that there's an issue with silent churn. The biggest challenge, I think, for franchisors here is you're managing from a lagging report. Like you're seeing what's happened in the past. You can't predict the future. You're not able to compare what's happening in locations effectively because there's very limited visibility into what is actually going on. If you're not getting that feedback, then you have no way to save these customers from walking out the door. It's just the fact that it's a lot more expensive to get a new customer than it is to retain an existing one. In fact, Harvard Business Review says 5 to 25 times more expensive to get a new customer. And I think we all know that, right? Marketing budgets are always allocated to face outward. It's focused on spreading your brand awareness, getting new traffic in the door. But what's actually happening inside those four walls once they get there is equally, if not more important when it comes to growing your revenue. Additionally, the profitability difference is even more striking. The same Harvard Business Review study showed that increasing customer retention by just 5% can actually boost your profitability between 25 to 95%, depending on your industry. This is because existing customers typically spend over a third more per transaction than new customers, and they are 50% more likely to try new products or services. They're also more willing to bring in their friends, with 71% of them recommending their brands that they love to their friends. So clearly, retention of your existing customers and keeping those people happy is a top priority if you're trying to grow revenues. Happy customers have a 300% higher lifetime value and will stay with brands on average 5.1 years. I would encourage you to think about what your average length of stay is for a customer. And if it's less than 5.1 years, we've got some work to do. Let's see here. The other thing here is this last stat. 60 to 80% of customers who describe themselves as satisfied do not go back to do business with that company more than once. So they may say, yeah, it was fine, not complain, but you're not getting to the root of what would make it an exceptional experience for them, what's going to bring them back. And so that's truly the challenge that most businesses are facing today is how can we get that feedback from customers who aren't on one side or the other? They're not thrilled. They're not super mad. They're just kind of in that middle. So what can you do? Addressing customer concerns and issues shouldn't be a one-time effort. It should be an ongoing process of continuous improvement. So businesses should collectively or actively collect feedback from their customers and use it to identify recurring issues or areas that need improvement. It's important that you put yourself in your customer's shoes, understand their needs, wants, pain points, what's keeping them coming back, what's frustrating them. It's hard to grow your business if you're unsure about how your customers actually feel about it. So if you don't already, you need to put a process into place for obtaining that customer feedback so you can share it with the rest of your organization. The beauty of customer relationships is that they're always evolving. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. That's why it's called gather feedback, because we're going to continue collecting it over time and use it to improve your retention strategies. Surveys are a goldmine of information. Pay attention to what your customers are actually saying. Are they happy? Are they frustrated? Is there a common theme that keeps coming up time and again? What do they want more of? And use the feedback to make data-driven improvements. The journey to perfect customer retention never ends. It's going to be a continuous feedback loop with constant learning and adaptation. Moving on. All right. So I have a couple questions to pose to y'all. And I think I lost my ability to see the questions and answers, but we'll get to them at the end. But so do you know your churn rate? Do you know your length of stay for your customers? If not, that's a great starting point to be able to know, what you're doing. Do you proactively solicit feedback from your customers? And by that, I don't mean wait for them to review you on Google, which is great, wonderful. But are you actively seeking feedback from all of your customers on a continuous basis? And then what do you do with that information once you have it? Let me see if I can get to that. And I would actually love to have y'all in the chat or in the Q&A answer those questions for me. Let me know any one of those three. Please let's share and let me know your thoughts if you're doing any of these things currently. Come on, guys. We need some engagement here. Who? There we go. Oh, look at that. Alex has used this Listen 360 and it's great. That's fantastic. Good to hear. I love it. I will say, as I mentioned, prior to coming to work for Listen 360, I was in franchise operations and I worked in several brands. We implemented Listen 360 in all of them. That's how I came here. I will sing its praises all day long, and we'll get into a little bit more about what Listen 360 does in a moment. Franchisee feedback survey. Fantastic. That's great. Proactively solicit feedback, very good. Retrain as needed and change continuous problems, very good. Yeah, I mean, I think, the challenge is how do you operationalize things at the location level while also getting that visibility, the overarching strategies. Awesome. I love this. This is great. Our franchisees use them 360 with their customers. Fantastic. I'm happy to hear that. We evaluate our processes and training materials upon receipt of the feedback. I will say, so the nice thing about a continuous feedback loop is the second you make a change, you will know exactly how your customers feel about it, which, is a blessing and a curse, but it helps from the franchisor perspective to be able to know, like, how is this landing with our customers? A lot of times you get feedback from your franchisees that are like, oh, this is terrible, or we love it. But maybe the customers don't feel the same way. Having a continuous feedback loop where you're constantly asking for their feedback is going to help you to know whether the things you're doing are making an impact. Also, if you are changing training or you are trying to impact customer service in some way, you'll know if you are making a difference. I love all of this. This is fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic. Elizabeth says she's an emerging brand, so therefore we are asking for their feedback. That's fantastic. That's excellent. When you're small, that's you totally can get your arms around it, and that's wonderful. I would challenge you to think about how are we using that information, right? Like going into a spreadsheet, are you able to collect themes, common themes, make strategic decisions based off of the feedback that you're receiving, rather than just handling everything as a one-off situation. This is great. I love that you all are doing something. This is fabulous. Calculate customer churn rate similar to employee churn rate. Yeah, I mean, so customer churn rate can be calculated in many ways. If it's a membership-based model business, that makes it very easy. However, you can also look at your total number of new customers that have come in the door versus your repeat customers, if you have a way to track that. Total customer counts, it depends on what you are able to really track as far as your customer relationship management goes. Like if you have a CRM system and you can track repeat visits, then that would be a great way to see if anyone's falling off. If you have customers that haven't been in, that were customers that are no longer customers, if you will. Excellent. I love all of this. All right. So a lot of you are using Listen 360 or some other NPS. Yes, absolutely. A loyalty program would be a great way to calculate churn rate or to be able to see those trends. May also offer some opportunity for you to solicit feedback as well. Let's talk a little bit. Okay, so Listen 360s. A lot of you are using Listen 360 already, but we are a platform that really tries to automate this for a number of industries. I mean, pretty much every industry across the board, but we are very big in the franchise space. We make sure that you are able to operationalize the feedback that's coming in at the location level. So your franchisees and their managers are able to reach out to their customers in real time and address customer service issues. But you can also pan back and look at the dashboards from a executive level, which is extremely helpful because then you're able to actually see what people are talking about, what the trends are over time. You can have an aggregate score so you can compare locations against each other, see where there's areas of opportunity. I will tell you 95% of the time, the NPS score is directly correlated to that location's performance. So it's a great performance indicator to use when you're coaching your franchisees. We also offer smart alerts. So if a detractor comes in, if a complaint comes in, that franchise owner is getting an email and or a text message immediately so they can jump on the phone right away and handle that situation before it becomes a public-facing situation. The other benefit, I would say, to having feedback collected internally is you can get ahead of things before they become public, which is a huge benefit as well, to be able to save that customer relationship and also save your your brand's public face. Let's see here. Here's a few examples of some of the brands that we have worked with over the years, as well as some of the quotes that their leadership teams have shared with us. But I think most importantly, well, Elements Massage, for example, I can tell you, massage is one of those things that's very personal, right? I don't think that people feel comfortable complaining about their massage experience all of the time, especially if they're going to come back. The service provider just, gave them a very personal service, and you don't necessarily want to make an enemy out of them. So you're just going to keep your mouth shut if something goes a little bit weird, right? Listen 360 was huge in opening the door so that Elements Massage could truly understand what people were experiencing, what they appreciated, what they didn't like, and to be able to make some pretty dramatic changes in their operations as a result. They have been a client of Listen 360 since the very beginning, and it has been a really wonderful partnership. Code Ninjas allows us to hear from our customers in real time and make strategic decisions based on what the entire system is saying, not just whoever is loudest. I think that's a big one too. I think a lot of times when you get feedback from your franchisees or from customers, the squeakiest the squeakiest mouse gets all the cheese, right? And so being able to see what is everyone saying? What are everyone saying is super beneficial. And then last but not least, having the ability to survey your members at a regular cadence without having to think about it, right? So it's kind of a set it and forget it. We're going to send them a survey every 3 months. Maybe they submit it, maybe they don't, but it gives you confidence that it's happening in the background. You don't have to remember to send the survey. You don't have to worry about calculating everything. You can just log in and see what your most recent results are. It helps give confidence in the data you're receiving too. It's not being manipulated in any way. So that's a wonderful thing about having a third-party platform collecting your feedback as well, is that you can kind of have that arm's length from it and not have such a personal relationship with it. All right. That is the bulk of my content. I feel like I just talked so fast, but I would love to open it up for discussion, chat, anything else that you guys would like to talk about, whether it's Listen 360 related or silent churn. Sounds as though silent churn maybe is something that nobody is measuring or looking at. I think churn rate is a challenge. I don't know what industry you all are in necessarily. Let's see here. I'm trying to see. Any questions for me? Any thoughts, comments, concerns, challenges, compliments? I'm open to all of them. All right. What percentage of people receiving a survey respond? That's an excellent question. I would say it's changed dramatically over recent years. Initially, it was very few people were getting surveys, right? Now it's like everywhere you go, you get a survey. So there's a couple of things that we recommend. First and foremost, keep it simple. So we typically have a 2-question survey that takes a few seconds, right? So it's, would you recommend us to your family or friends? Rated on a score of 0 to 10. And then based on what you say, how can we improve, or what do you love about us? And then just leave a text box. And that's the majority of our clients just have that 2-question survey. They get all of the information they ever needed to know from the comments that are contained in that text box, but making it quick and easy and simple for people to complete helps improve that response rate. A goal response rate is about 20% is what we typically see. So again, if you're in a recurring model where you're sending the surveys repeatedly to the same people, they'll complete the first survey, and then if something changes in their sentiment, they'll complete future surveys. But if otherwise, it's like, I feel the same, they're not going to complete it. So that 20% is a little bit skewed on the low end just because we have those repeat customers getting the same surveys over and over again. But that's a good rule of thumb as far as response rate goes. Good question. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 1 out of 26 unhappy speak up. Could the same be true for happy customers? Yes. And it is absolutely important to respond to all feedback, thanking them for their positive comments as well. I can't tell you how many times I've left a business being like, that was a great experience. And then that just goes in my brain and nobody ever knows, you know? Like, and that happens all of the time. Yes. And I think the other nice thing about having that continuous feedback loop is not only do you have the opportunity to address issues, but you also have the opportunity to collect direct quotes from all of your customers about what they love about you, right? And you can use that for marketing materials. You can use that for promotional campaigns. You can use that just to kind of celebrate with your franchisees and their teams. It's a great way to get more positive feedback in addition to negative and to know like what about your business really is moving the needle for your customers. A lot of times it's kind of just a random guess, right? You think people love this, but how do you really know? Do you track all best practices regarding how brands these implement change based on the results? Something as a baseline to better train people on how to utilize the feedback. Absolutely. So we have one report that's unique, somewhat unique. When it first came out, it was miles ahead of anything else that anybody had ever been doing. But it's called the Voice of the Customer Report, where we scan all of the qualitative feedback and we look for keywords and we break it down into buckets and we can tell you if people are talking positively or negatively about certain categories. We do absolutely also have benchmarks available for various industries. As I said, we've worked with brands across all industries, and so we are more than happy to share that information with our customers as well, as far as like what's going on in the industry, what we see as far as trends. A lot of times, though, you're going to be comparing your results against yourselves because every business model is slightly unique, and so it's important that you kind of set that baseline and then measure it against your improvements of yourselves. But yes, we do have best practices and recommendations for benchmarks available as well. Thoughts on on AI use for customer feedback? We struggle to keep the human element intact. Yeah, I mean, so we have AI responders, like for your positive feedback or whatnot. You can have us thank you so much for your comments. We really appreciate you. You can have a stock response. I agree that the human element is important, especially when there's a customer service issue. You really want to be addressing that personally when you can. I know the future is coming and robots are taking over the world, but I think, specifically when you're trying to maintain that customer relationship, that human element is important. And so I think it's obviously your frontline teams don't have an unlimited amount of time. It needs to be quick and it needs to be easy for them to see what they need to do and to be able to reach out and handle it right away. So I think it's also important to make sure that you have a system that tracks it. So you're able to see if somebody's communicated and you're able to communicate between your teams to make sure that that follow-up is coming through. I think the human element becomes easier when it becomes less of a lift to actually get it done. If it's on one person's shoulders, it can be a challenge for sure because you get some negative emails. Nobody wants to deal with that every day. Krista, do you have any other follow-up on that as far as the human element, like the struggles that you're having? I'm happy to chat through it. The other thing I'll say, Jacqueline, as far as how to better train people on how to utilize the feedback, obviously every situation is going to be unique, right? But so I think having a transparent view of what people are truly saying is step one. As far as training, because if they're giving comments about specific instances or specific experiences, it's very easy to train and say like, hey, we should not do that. We should not close early. People are getting upset about that. But when it's more holistic issues, like strategic things that you want to change in the business, that's less of a training issue and more of a strategy decision. So when you're collecting the feedback, if it's a one-off situation, absolutely, transparency is key, making sure that the managers and the teams are aligned. But if it's going to be something that you're going to make a change in your operation, then that might be something that we can coach you to as well. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I get that. Yeah, and you are totally right. The qualitative comments will sometimes. So again, our Voice of the Customer report pulls out keywords that you have decided you wanted to focus on, and then it says whether or not it's being spoken about positively or negatively, regardless of whether they give you a 10 or a 5 or a 0. It pulls it out and it will categorize it as positive or negative based on the words that are actually said, which is great. Um, yeah, so I agree. I think those auto responders, I mean, you know when somebody's responding to you via an auto response, or if it's a real human who's genuinely appreciative, right? So again, like your time is currency. So it's like what is more important here? I think when people give you a 5 out of 5 and they're singing your praises, that's a great opportunity to nurture that relationship so that they can feel valued and they will refer their friends and they will become connected with you. I think a lot of times we see those 5 out of 5s and we're like, okay, just get them off my list. Move along. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But I think it's a huge opportunity that is being missed. The other thing that's nice about collecting feedback over time is you can watch the trends. If you had a customer that was a 10 out of 10 and now they're a 7 out of 10, we can alert you to that. So you know that something's going on and they're starting to fall off, right? So I would consider you, or I would encourage you all to think about your feedback loop. Think about what you're doing with the feedback. I'm sure you're all getting feedback, but is there a way for you to automate it so that it's not so much of a lift and then strategically evaluate it so you can make decisions based off of what the feedback that you're receiving? Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here, I believe. If anybody has anything else they would like to throw out here, I am happy. We've got a few minutes left, but otherwise, I will turn it back over to you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. This was excellent content and excellent feedback from all of you. We really do appreciate it. Again, this webinar was recorded and along with the presentation deck will appear on our website early this evening. You'll be able to find that at franchise.org. Thank you very much again to Jenna and the Listen 360 team for sponsoring today's webinar. And again, thank you to everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and healthy. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.